Hello, wonderful listeners. Welcome back to another episode of Unleashing Brilliance. And today I am so pumped to welcome back the fabulous Nicky Miklos. Those of you that have been following along for a while may remember me talking to Nicky and her colleague Vanessa about their book that they launched a few months ago called Healthy Hustle. Here it is. And the response to this book and the podcast episode that we did was so phenomenal and off the charts that I decided to get Nicky back on. Many of your requests were talking about, Janine, I know we shouldn't be hustling. Yes, I'm at risk of burnout, but the reality is I'm also running a business. The reality is that I still need leads, and the world seems to have gone a little bit crazy. What do you suggest in light of that? And of course, we have the queen of all things business growth, smart growth, Nicky, in our world, and hence I've invited her back. So Nicky, thank you so much for saying yes and jumping into having a deeper conversation about this. How are you?
I am amazing, and thank you so much as well for having me back. I'm incredibly passionate about this topic, anything to do with smart growth, sales, business growth, and it really is the backbone of a successful business, and very valid questions, because how do we keep that hustle healthy whilst we're trying to grow our business and wearing the many, many hats? So wonderful to be here. Hello, everybody.
Now, I'm curious because you've actually had a amazing last 6 months in terms of, first of all, congratulations on the book and everything that has opened up for you and all of the opportunities that are coming out of that. Congratulations on the TED Talk. And I've been seeing you popping up on stages and panels talking about this smart growth concepts. And you've also had commercial success, which is great, smashing your quarter. So business owner to business owner, I'm high-fiving you, because in these current times, we know that does not come easy. So you're a living, breathing example of everything that you do, everything that you teach, and everything that you share and how that works. So I'm really curious, before we delve into serving the audience and giving them the tips and tools, etc., as a fellow business owner, what are you noticing that's going on out there at the moment?
Thank you so much for those high fives. I shall take them and pass them on as well. So look, I think the things that I'm noticing, the conversations that I'm having, are particularly around this focus on sales. So when I think about sales, I think about smart growth. It's not transactional. It's about sustainable growth in a business. There's a lot of fear, of course, out in the market. There's the economic uncertainty, the political, the global, all of those sorts of things. But there's also a lot of businesses that, whilst they're absolutely nailing it, they're smashing it, there's almost this uncertainty or fear around, but hang on a second, what's around the corner? So how do I set my business up for success? The challenge is that they're stuck in that reactive cycle, the hustle. Like you said, theoretically, absolutely, we want the healthy hustle. But whether we have a team or not and we're in business, we really have to bring that hustle sometimes. And then I think there's another side of things where businesses are actually struggling and they don't know how to really get those systems and structure in place from a sales point of view. But I think one of the big challenges is that they often don't think about, I need systems and structure and strategy. It's very reactive. So things that I'm seeing, the challenges that businesses are facing at the moment is that their results are very reliant on one or two high performers in the business or the business owner or leaders. And so it's very reactive. Salespeople are nervous. They're being reactive to the market, to the fact that there's higher distrust than ever before. The fact that AI is taking over and we need to embrace how do we use that in our sales as opposed to completely, pushing it away. So very reactive, and performance is reliant on high performers. The other feeling is that I'm building the plane as I fly it, because there's no sales systems in place. There's no sales strategies. So, things like we need to be intentional with what is the sales culture that we're creating? What are the operating rhythms? And it's kind of the unsexy stuff, but it is the stuff that will actually set businesses up for future success. And then the third kind of final, really repeat issue, problem, challenge that I'm seeing is that there's this unintentional but still neglect happening of existing relationships, of clients, of potential referral opportunities and leads. So there's a neglect strategy. And again, that might sound, some people like, oh, that really hurts. It's not intentional, but are you neglecting, opportunities and relationships? Because, that's really what I'm saying. So very reactive, very ambiguous systems in place, building the plan like we're flying it. And realistically, money is being left on the table because we're getting caught up in this whirlwind and the busy trap.
Love that. I was talking to many of our colleagues actually in my community last week about what I'm noticing, and it's supporting what you're saying there. So the analogy that I use is the one of physics, where to get anything moving, we need force and power. If we think about physics, force is the thing that gets something moving. It's the push, it's the pull, whereas power is the thing that sustains it. It's the thing that is the energy behind the movement, the capacity that keeps going. And when I look around, I'm seeing business owners and individuals operating from that place of force, what you're calling hustle. It's hustle, it's panic, it's competition, it's a winning at any cost. And what I'm noticing the result of that is it's short term, it's reactive, and on the individual, it's very draining. So it might show up as writing and rewriting proposals, of dropping prices, of discounting, of doing more than you've actually said you're going to do. So that whole project creep out of fear of hanging on to the business. And the force is, you just talked about the lack of relationship building. Force isn't relationship building because it's this chasing of new business and looking out versus the money that's potentially on the table. And what I've been talking to business owners about is, what if instead of using force, instead of the hustle, we turn toward power, which is very different kind of energy. It's grounded, it's internal, it's about a courage, an internal courage. It's about conviction. And I think that place, power, is the kind of presence that says you don't need to shout to be heard. It's an energy that says, I know what I stand for. I know what I bring to the table. And for me, it's more intentional. And it's that intention that turns into traction. So that's what I'm noticing. And from what you've just said, Nicky, it relates to this. What are the systems and the structures and the strategies that you already probably know you should be doing, but you're potentially avoiding? It is that boring stuff that actually works in these current climates. So I love what you stand for. Any thoughts on that power force conversation before we dive a bit deeper into your thinking?
I mean, I love that. I think the power, it is that conviction piece. And absolutely, when there's fear and there's panic and there's uncertainty within, then, the go-to is, I've got to do more, do. And it becomes very surface level. And I love that reminder to pause, to step back for a moment and go, how am I grounding myself in this moment? How am I stepping into my power? How am I empowering my team to do that? And on that reflection and, the power of the pause, to get on the balcony, as we talk about, get off the dance floor, the day-to-day doing, to get on the balcony and actually look at some of these fundamental areas we're talking about. The right systems are going to be the thing that helps you stand in your power. But that's not necessarily really obvious at first, is it? So it's this whole thing around just pause doing for a moment, step back, and let's look at how we're being, get on the balcony, and then intentionally, I think intention, deliberate action. I always talk about action with purpose, not just action for the sake of it. How are we taking action with purpose? And be careful, because there's a thing that we call commission breath, and people can smell that a mile away. So this desperation to close the sales, we've got to be aware of that. We don't want to get commission breath everywhere. We need to actually remember what actually is the purpose of this connection, this relationship. How am I serving and helping my ideal client? Have I actually revisited who my ideal client is? Have I looked at the market and been able to adapt to that? All of these things will help the listeners, viewers, us, continue to be able to step into our power. And it's not always easy, but there is a formula that you can follow.
All right, I want to follow that formula. So, by the way, commission breath. Oh, the picture in my mind. Talk to me about this process, because I'm sure there's many people listening in right now that are seeing a very different landscape in their businesses than they potentially saw 6 months ago, 12 months ago. There is a process. There is a system. I'm curious, what is that system?
Okay, so I think the first thing we need to look at is actually review your actions and your team's actions through 3 key buckets, if you will. So one of them is the skill of your team. Are you investing in and yourself and your team to upskill? You know, there's 3 key areas around that. This will move the team from reactive to proactive. And the 3 key areas are actually perceptual shifting. So what I mean by that is, what's the mindset of the team? How are they feeling? Are they getting caught up in the fear cycle? What's their belief around sales? It's amazing how many salespeople still have a really hindering belief around what sales means. Have you explored that with your team? And are you actually embracing their natural drivers and coaching and developing them to their natural drivers? So, you know, are they naturally bigger picture, detailed? What's their energy level at different times of days? All of that comes into perceptual shifting. And then you need to be able to lift the sales capability in the team around their skill to discover and uncover the needs and convert. And that's a very simple way of looking at what is the sales process, but most importantly, how the team embedding that. So they're moving from reactive to proactive, which means that your sales results are not just reliant on high performers in the business. But here's the thing. Some people might be nodding along going, yeah, I invest in sales training. And that's amazing if you do. And if you don't, get creative around how you could do that. But also equally, a lot of people go, yep, I've got sales training done and that's it. Why aren't I getting the results? And that's where we need to move over the other bucket. The 2 other buckets are systems, and I'm going to give you a compass formula for that, and then strategy. So the strategy is around, how am I nurturing instead of neglecting? How am I nurturing my clients? So I hope everybody's writing this down. My clients, my referrals. Am I asking for referrals? We talk about this a lot, Janine, you know, referral magic. And then also my leads. Do I understand the difference between a cold, a warm, and a hot lead? Because it's actually a different nurture strategy for each. So that's another bucket, is strategy. Really, where all of this starts, if you truly want to create sustainable growth in your business and embrace smart growth instead of transactional sales, systems is where it starts. There's a framework that I created called Compass, and this is something that I've been building for, I don't want to say decades because I feel like it's just making me sound older, but patterns that I see. So culture, what intentional sales culture are you creating in your business? What operating rhythms do you have? You have to have regular check-ins, team meetings, huddles, wrap-ups, get your team along the line, on board, position descriptions. What are the markers, the measures of success that you have in place so that people know I'm succeeding or I'm not succeeding, and how do I get there? How are you actually developing their performance? So we're at the P, the performance management, the performance development for that individual and the team. What's the architecture? So that's the things like CRMs, sales collateral, sales playbook, that type of thing. So a lot of people think when I say systems, straight there, but you can see there's a whole bunch of other areas. S for synergy. Is there synergy between different departments? Oh my gosh, the amount of conversations in my personal experience, sales and marketing not talking to each other and the negative impact. Or I'm selling a product or service, but delivery is dropping the ball. You know, so is there synergy across the wider business? And then scope. The final S is for scope. Am I across the scope of opportunity, my market opportunity, different territories? But that also really comes into play here, what we're talking about, scope of opportunity around product and service. Do I need to change? Do I need to, dare I say, pivot? Do I need to revisit how I'm selling or what I'm selling? What is the scope of opportunity for my business and my product and service? So they're the 3 key buckets: skills, strategy, and systems. And then to go a little bit deeper, the Compass framework, which allows you to set the structure. You can then evaluate it, execute it, and then evaluate it.
Let me just recap so that if people are listening as they're walking or driving, we've got it again. So the 3 buckets: systems, strategy, and skills. Then to go deeper, you've got Compass. So C equals, give me the one word.
Culture.
O is for
operating rhythms.
Operating rhythms. I love that word. M is for
markers of success.
And success. P equals
performance.
A equals, I'm checking my spelling there.
Architecture.
Architecture. S equals
Synergy.
synergy. And the final S is
scope.
Love that. Oh my goodness me. I want to just circle back a little bit because you said something about there being 3 key audiences that essentially need to have a strategy around them. You talked about clients, you talked about referral network, and you talked about leads. You're talking my language because I talk a lot, and you mentioned this too, that many businesses, they're so busy looking outside, they're so busy searching for next, that actually they've probably got their next level of growth within their existing client base or within people that already know them or people that are already connected to them, following them, have given them an email. So I'd love to delve into some ideas that you've got around those 3 key areas, because I'm imagining people listening and watching, this is stuff that they can do really quickly, or at least get curious about as to how they're doing and not doing and see the gaps. So let's start with clients. So these are people that you're already working with. Nicky, what do you see? Let's do what you see people not doing, the mistakes that people make. And then if you've got any tips and tools that people can start percolating on, that would be great.
Great. Also, there is a little bit of this type of content in the book as well. And I have the growth code, which is a great resource that actually goes into this lead analysis in a little bit more detail. So I can send the link through for that for you as well. So what do people not do when it comes to nurturing clients? Well, they forget about them. They might deliver the work, but or if you've got a team where you've got a salesperson and then there's a different delivery team, well, oftentimes the salesperson will just forget about that relationship. There's no checking in. There's no conversations or continuing to nurture and reach out. Like, it doesn't have to be War and Peace. It doesn't have to be epically huge, but the reality is that client still might have other needs that need to be met. There might be other ways that you can help them that they're not even aware of. So there's no exploration or curiosity around that, what that looks like. The other thing about clients is I include in that bucket or that area past clients. So clients existing or past, the amount of opportunity that is sitting in your contact list. I've got the visual of the old school business cards or people that you've worked with. They are still warm or potentially hot leads. When was the last time you called that person that you worked with, even 5 years ago, just to have a chat, not to sell to them? Think about 5 years ago was COVID. What has happened for that person in the last 5 years? Are they still in business or doing that thing that they were doing that you were able to help them with? So I see people not talking to lapsed or previous clients and nurturing that relationship as equally as the existing clients.
That's the piece that I often talk about with that light touch networking. So many times people are not thinking about how to look after, how to build a relationship with the clients that they've already got. Or as you said, the people that were clients, they just forget about them. Work's done, forget. And it's only when the proverbial hits the fan and they start panicking about leads that they go, oh my God, I must reach out again. But to your point earlier, we can smell it. We can smell it when people are reaching out for the sale versus purely the connection piece. So yeah, I love that. Like thinking about not just the work, not just the delivery, not just the money coming in, not just the contract, but actually building a relationship. As we know, business isn't always has been about people. So this ability to build your relationship, like I know, much like myself, you've got a strong retention base of clients. That does not come by accident. The ability to retain business, particularly you talked about this too, in a world where we are seeking trust, where we are searching for belief and hope in the chaos. We want to work with people that we've worked with before that get us. So I think that's why this is so important. And to me, this is one of the fundamental things we should be doing, but also one of the first things that people seem to not do.
Definitely. And the other thing I would add to that is the other thing I see people not do is not guide their clients to whatever that next step is. So you're right. You know, I really pride myself in the fact that I have clients I've worked with for a decade, you know, for a number of years, and it's not by accident. And reflecting on why that is, it's because, and this is what you do very well as well, it's like, you know, that show Dancing with the Stars. There's a professional and then there's a novice dancer. Now, if that novice dancer was just left to guide the dance, they don't know. They don't know the moves. They don't know what's coming next. But the professional is going, here's what we're going to do. Here's the next step. This is how we get there. Imagine if that professional just stopped and didn't do anything. Like the novice is going, the celebrity, I should say, he's going, I don't know, or the star. So we have to take that role as that professional dancer to guide and check in and say, this is where we're at now, and paint a picture of this is what the next looks like. And when you do that, again, not at the last minute, not because you want to get the sale, but because you're genuinely curious around what are the results of the clients getting? How can I help them get to the next level? And you're seeding and you're having those conversations and you're showing them. And then you can, dare I say, fairly easily guide them to that next step and that next phase. So we have to be that professional dancer on Dancing with the Stars and guide and show that next step. And it shouldn't be a surprise. You know, it's like an obvious, logical next thing that we've already been talking to them about a couple of months in advance, if not even earlier.
Let's move on to referrals again. Oh my gosh. I equally say you cannot build business purely on referrals. There's many people that come into my world where they've had 2 to 3 years of great growth and they go, but my business is built on referrals. I go, awesome, until the referrals stop. Or have you got a strategy to manage those referrals? And they go, no, because they're waiting for that business to come in. And as all it takes is somebody a little bit noisier than you, maybe a little bit cheaper, maybe that has built a bigger profile, and suddenly that beaut client that you had disappears. I'm curious about your view on referrals and what you see happening, the mistakes, and also suggestions.
I agree. I mean, I think referrals are amazing. Our sales strategy needs to not be reliant just on referrals. And in saying that, I get it. I get when you're really busy. I get when you're in the whirlwind. It's tricky to then all of a sudden create a strategy and intention behind how else you're getting business. But I mean, I've been there. I'm sure you've been there. Others, when you don't do that, and then all of a sudden your pipeline dries up and it's like, what the heck am I actually going to do? That's also why I don't just have referrals as a part of a nurture strategy. That's why there is also the client strategy and there's also the lead. But referrals are your best warm opportunity. So when we think about warm means they either know you, your business, or somebody else that is connected to you. And this is why referrals are so powerful, because immediately there's an element of potential rapport and trust. So we've talked about trust a lot. What I see people not do is ask for referrals proactively. They're relying on it very reactively. Or if they do ask for referrals, the amount of conversations I've had where it's like, yeah, I asked for referrals. Awesome. Great. Tell me about what the next step is. So they ask the question, something like, do you know anybody that could benefit from XYZ that we've done for you? Amazing. So you've done the first step, but then there's actually so much more, because how often do you ask that and then nothing comes of it? So I see people not taking that next step. You know, we want you to be kind of in control as much as possible, or influencing this as much as possible. And I don't mean from an icky sales point of view. I mean, if this is an intentional strategy, sales strategy, nurture strategy, then you can actually support and increase the conversion rate of actually getting one through. So how we do that is excellent. I'm really pleased to hear that. Who comes to mind? Asks for specificity. Sometimes they can't answer that in the moment, and that's okay. They're going to think about it. If they do, ask then and there. I believe, just be bold. You know, are you happy to share contact details? And I'll give them a call. Now, a lot of the times they'll say no to that. Fine, that's okay. But in my view, ask. Like, what's the harm in asking? If they're not happy with that, could you do an introduction email? I'll send you some wording to make it super easy for you to do that intro. And it's amazing, even just the difference when I've sent some copy, and I know you are a massive, this is your thing. When I send copy versus just rely on them introing, 90% of the time they'll actually do it. It's our job to make it really easy for them. Not just ask the surface level question, but how are we making it easy for them? And I truly think, you know, overall, one of the things that we don't do is pick up the phone. And I get sometimes people won't answer. I get sometimes people say no, but in my view, I go, just try it and then go to the second tier quality communication. Because if you have a conversation with someone, so absolutely pick up the phone and ask for the referral would be another thing. Don't just send an email. Do you know anybody? Like the quality of the touch point. Yes, we call it high touch, but high touch also means better quality connection. And if you're not getting anywhere, then default to the second tier sort of quality connection. So I think they're probably the key things. Also get creative with how you're reaching out. We have voice notes. We have LinkedIn voice notes. We've got Loom videos, which we are both huge fans of. So if you can't get a hold of someone on the phone, try a creative way, because that's how you're going to stand out amongst all of the noise that is out there.
Love that. Right, let's go into that final one, leads, which is actually where most people start. I've got no leads.
Leads, I probably would say treating all leads as equal, maybe could be an answer. Here we go. Let's explore this. In your leads, there are cold leads. So people that have no barony, they don't know who you are. You've got warm leads, like we talked about with referrals, past clients, and you've got hot. And essentially it means hot is ready to buy, they're ready to go. Warm, so they're in decision phase. Warm is they're in consideration phase. So who could help me with this problem? And cold is they might not even be aware of you or aware they have a problem. So my tip around this is start with your hot, then move to warm, and then move to cold. So your marketing, and I'm not a marketing expert, but any marketing that you do, whether, marketing could also be organically nurturing if LinkedIn is your space, or other social media, or actually working with a marketing person to generate leads. Cool. Remember that they're cold. How do you warm them up? So you've still got to think, I'm moving cold leads, i.e. they don't know me, they don't know my business, or they're not aware that they have a problem. But don't try to sell to them. You're not there to sell to them. You are there to nurture, to identify, could they be a warm lead? So that when they're in the warm category, which is the consideration, I have a problem, who could help solve this, that you're the first person. So that's what I mean by don't treat all leads as equal. Have a different type of conversation with cold leads to get them to know, build a relationship, get them to know who you are. Warm leads, you might start getting a bit more of a pointy conversation around discover to uncover. What's their problem? We're still not selling. We're only selling to hot leads that have a problem, that have actually given you permission to put a solution in front of them. And I think that's a big challenge that people don't really understand. They either sell too early, or they're not looking at what is the strategic conversation, I guess, for each different type of lead.
I love the way that you've broken it down into a different approach, a different strategic direction for your clients' referrals and leads. People listening in may go, or may be asking, I get it, but that feels like a lot of work. Are you, by doing this, tapping into, adding to my hustle, my workload, my burnout? And I know it doesn't, because I'm such a supporter of your work. What do you advise to people listening that may be overwhelmed at the amount of things that they may have to focus on or do to turn their sales around in a way that is smart growth?
Completely. And, big conversation around this healthy hustle and sales is, how do we keep our sales hustle healthy? So, we've got to remember healthy hustle, the definition of that is that we're creating momentum. We know when to push and we know when to pull back. It's very similar to your physics analogy with force and power. Start small. So there is so much that we have shared today. There are so many different methods and strategies and frameworks. If you walked away and tried to implement it all now, you're going to fall into unhealthy hustle. It's not going to serve anybody. My recommendation is pick one thing. Think about, of everything we talked about, what was the area that either made you feel a bit sick, or you're like, ugh, or resistant, or, what's your reaction to this conversation is the feedback to look at what's the first area to focus on. I would say from a strategy, if your lead generation is a gap at the moment, go right back, listen to the part of the podcast again where we talked about clients, and take one action from clients. If you've got that nailed and you've done everything there, then listen to the section around referrals. If you've got that nailed, then listen to the section around leads. Or if you feel like actually you've got enough work coming in at the moment, so yes, we still want to be proactive with our strategy, but that's not the biggest issue right now, revisit the section where I talked about compass. There's going to be something in there. What we've shared today, it's actually part of a sales activation model that I've created. And over time, if you install each of these key things, your business is going to be rocking and it's going to be sustainable for future growth. But I don't expect you're going to be able to do, if I tried to do all of that right now, I would be overwhelmed as well. So pick one thing. I truly believe, and those of you who have read the book know that it's about the little things that make a difference. It's the 1%. If you change 1% instead of trying to change 100%, you will have better growth. So release that pressure, stop shooting all over yourself, and pick one thing that you can focus on from here.
I love that advice. And I think that is the mastery and the craft of smart growth, of when things are feeling like you're hustling hard and it's not moving anywhere. It is that get on the balcony, take a moment to pause, look at your business. What is the one thing that if you doubled down on that and focused on that for a period of time, it would move the dial? Exactly what we do ourselves, don't we, Nicky, when we do our quarterly planning. Really key about one thing for commercial growth, one thing that actually you do second, which is going to unlock the next piece of scaling or growth. And that's the hard bit, because it's so easy to add on. It's so easy to do more. The mastery of running a business is that one thing. And sales, what I love about how you shared this is you shared structure and systems. You've broken it down into those buckets. Love the compass work and the auditing that we can do around that. And then equally these smarts that you share around clients first, then referrals, then leads. There's plenty in this podcast for people to be able to unlock that next opportunity for smart growth. And the other thing, again, I just want to come back to, you do this in your own business. You are a living example and proof that what you teach, what you share, that sales activation model that you've created, you do yourself and you've implemented in so many businesses and the results of that. So sales we can get, the key here is don't wait for it to turn around. Don't wait for the world to rescue you. You can activate sales yourself if you slow down and you stop and you pick that one thing and you move forward. Absolute genius, Nicky. Is there a final word you'd like to, I can tell, what's your final message to the people listening?
I think what's also important to add to that is that if you are feeling that you're in that place of unhealthy hustle or hardcore hustle, think about what your no-go zones are. Set some time where you can actually step back. If you had to go and have an operation, you would find that time. That seems to be the theme of the conversations this week around you can set those no-go zones. And the other thing is prioritize life. Think about, and again, you and I are both so passionate about this, and it's talked about a lot in the book around set yourself a prioritized life goal. In that resource I'm going to share with you, there's actually a clarity code that allows people that are feeling in that space of unhealthy hustle to just set a 4-week focus. So the one thing from a business or sales point of view and a one thing for yourself point of view, which I call prioritize life. So I really encourage, if that's where you're at, use this template to just really kind of get clear on what can I focus on and block the rest out. We have this one precious life, and this is my final words that I talk about all the time. It's in the TEDx, and it's truly what drives me to do this work and help businesses grow their impact. Because at the end of the day, life is pretty short. We have, as Mary Oliver says, one wild and precious life. So my question to those of you that are watching, that are listening and living, is how will you live it best? Will you stay stuck in this cycle of chaos and busy, or will you take some intentional action so that you have the freedom of choice of how you're living that one wild and precious life?
Nicky, you are an absolute gift. Thank you so much for your time. Those of you that are listening, so many messages in this podcast. Please make sure you download the resources that Nicky has shared in the show notes. It will absolutely unlock for you awareness around that one key thing to start on that is going to unlock the sales in your business, but from a smart growth place, from a place where, as Nicky said, you are living this one precious life. You're running your business within it in a way that means that you are building a business and a life by your design. Thank you so much, Nicky. Such a joy to have you back on the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much.